Chosen ones, there comes a point in your walk with God when the heavens cannot remain silent anymore. There is a sacred moment when the Father looks at your life and says, "Now, my child, you have done it. Now, my child, you have finally stepped into the place I was waiting for you to reach." It is in that moment, not when the crowd claps, not when the world applauds, but when you make the secret choice that pleases Him, that God Himself smiles in joy. That smile is not ordinary. It is the greatest reward a believer can receive. The smile of God means that you have aligned yourself with His will. It means you have surrendered your stubbornness, broken your pride, and trusted Him fully. Think about it. How many times have we tried to do things our way, only to fall into discouragement? How many nights have we cried because we thought God had abandoned us, when in truth, He was waiting for us to do the one thing that would bring Him joy? Surrender. Chosen ones, surrender is not weakness. It is strength. To lay your burden at the feet of Jesus is to say, "Lord, I trust you more than I trust myself." And that act of trust, that step of faith, is what makes heaven rejoice. When you finally stop wrestling with God and start walking with Him, He looks at you with the smile of a father who sees his child growing into maturity. Do you know why heaven rejoices when a sinner repents? It is because repentance is alignment. In the same way, when you, His chosen, finally obey that command, forgive that person, release that bitterness, or step out in faith despite your fear, God smiles because you are aligning yourself with His plan. He has been patiently waiting for you to let go of your way and embrace His. And when you did it, chosen one, when you finally said yes to Him, the joy of the Lord was released like a river. Let me tell you this, the smile of God is far greater than the approval of men. Men will applaud you when you succeed by their standards, but their applause is temporary. God smiles at you when you obey Him, and that smile is eternal. Men may overlook you, reject you, or even betray you, but if the Father is smiling, you are already victorious. His joy is your strength, His delight is your shield, and His approval is your destiny. Do not seek to make men happy, seek to make God smile, for when He is with you, nothing can stand against you. Some of you have been through long seasons where it felt as though God was silent. You prayed, you cried, you wondered why nothing was moving. But here's the truth. God was waiting for your obedience. He was waiting for you to trust Him enough to take the step you had been resisting. And the moment you did it, maybe it was forgiving someone, maybe it was choosing purity, maybe it was staying faithful when no one saw. The moment you finally obeyed, the silence of heaven broke into a smile. That smile is a sign that your season of testing has shifted into a season of blessing. Think of Abraham. God promised him nations, but the real test was obedience. When Abraham was willing to offer Isaac, the child of promise, heaven could no longer stay silent. The angel called out, "No, I know you fear God." And in that moment, God's joy was released, and Abraham's destiny as the father of nations was sealed. Chosen ones, the same principle applies to you. There is always a test of obedience, and when you finally pass it, heaven responds. God smiles and your destiny begins to unfold. So chosen ones, take courage. You may feel that your obedience was small, but in God's eyes it was monumental. That simple act of trust has moved His heart. That secret yes you whispered in prayer has shifted the atmosphere. And because of that, the Father is smiling upon you today. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not abandoned. You are deeply loved. And heaven is rejoicing because you finally did the very thing God was waiting for you to do. The smile of God is worth more than all the treasures of this world. It means you are walking in His will, and nothing can separate you from His love. Keep making the choices that please Him. Keep trusting Him when it's hard. Keep saying yes when your flesh says no. For every time you obey, every time you surrender, every time you trust, heaven smiles again. And if God is smiling, chosen one, then all of creation must bow to the destiny He has placed inside you. Walk boldly because the Father's joy is your greatest reward. Chosen ones, when God smiles upon you, it is not only because you did something right in the eyes of men, but because you finally aligned yourself with His heart. His joy is not stirred by outward success, by the size of your house, the weight of your bank account, or the applause of your community. His joy is stirred when you finally chose to walk away from your old self and step into obedience. You see, heaven doesn't celebrate what the world celebrates. The world celebrates achievement, but heaven celebrates surrender. The world rejoices when you win trophies, but God rejoices when you overcome temptations. And the moment you said yes to Him, yes to purity, yes to purity, yes to humility, yes to prayer, yes to forgiveness, heaven was filled with joy and God's smile was turned toward you. There are many moments in your life when no one else notices your struggle. No one sees the tears you shed in your room. No one hears the silent battles in your mind. No one feels the weight of the choices you must make. But God sees it all. He watches when you turn away from sin, when you resist the devil, when you choose light instead of darkness. And when you finally surrender that hidden battle, His joy overflows. The smile of God is proof that your hidden faithfulness has been seen and accepted by Him. Think of Joseph in Egypt. Nobody saw him when he rejected the advances of Potiphar's wife. No choir applauded his decision. No one gave him an award for purity. And in fact, his obedience cost him years in prison. But heaven saw. And when Joseph said no to sin, God smiled in joy. That smile was not just approval. It was the very seed that unlocked his destiny. Chosen ones, you must understand that when you finally obey God in secret, His smile ensures your public breakthrough. It may not come immediately, but His joy is the foundation of your promotion. This is why it is so important to realize that your battle is not just about you. Every time you make the choice to obey God, heaven rejoices but hell trembles. Your act of obedience is a weapon of warfare. Your yes to God weakens the kingdom of darkness. Your decision to trust Him destroys the plans of the enemy. And in that moment, God's smile is not only joy, it is also victory. He smiles because He knows the devil has lost another battle over your life. But chosen ones, we must be honest. It isn't always easy to do what makes God smile. Sometimes the flesh resists. Sometimes the pain is too much. Sometimes the voice of doubt screams louder than faith. And yet when you choose obedience despite the pressure, when you choose faith despite the fear, you prove that your heart belongs to Him. That is why His smile is so powerful. It is His way of saying, "My child, you have pleased me. You have trusted me. You have honored me above yourself." And that is what brings Him joy. When you finally step into this place of obedience, your relationship with God changes. You are no longer just a believer who seeks blessings. You are a son, a daughter who carries His pleasure. His smile becomes your covering. His joy becomes your strength. And His delight becomes your reward. And once God delights in you, no curse can bind you. No enemy can destroy you. No storm can drown you. His joy secures your destiny. And His smile secures your future. Consider David, the shepherd boy. The world didn't notice him when he was singing to God in the fields. His brothers overlooked him. His father almost forgot him. But God saw him. God heard the songs. God felt the love in his heart, and He smiled. That smile led to David being chosen as king. You see, God smiles when you do what no one else values. When you love Him quietly, when you serve Him faithfully, when you honor Him wholeheartedly. Those are the moments that heaven treasures. Chosen ones, remember this truth. God's smile is the reward for your obedience. You may not see the results instantly. You may not feel the applause of men. But if heaven is rejoicing, you have already won. What you did may have felt small, but in eternity it is great. Do not grow weary in doing what pleases Him. Keep obeying, keep trusting, keep surrendering. Because every time you do, the Father smiles in joy. And when God smiles, no power in heaven or on earth can stop the destiny He has prepared for you. Walk boldly in this truth, for the smile of God is your crown of victory. Chosen ones, the greatest joy of heaven is not found in the mighty works of men, but in the simple obedience of God's children. When you finally chose to forgive, when you resisted the temptation no one else knew about, when you lifted your voice to thank God in the middle of your storm, that was the moment the Father smiled. It may have seemed small to you, but it carried eternal weight. You see, the kingdom of God operates differently from the kingdoms of this world. The world honors power, wealth, and recognition, but God honors obedience, humility, and surrender. His smile is released not when you perform before crowds, but when you bow before Him in secret. The moment you chose to do the right thing in silence, heaven erupted in joy. Angels recorded your act of faith, and the Lord Himself delighted in you. Chosen ones, you must never underestimate the power of hidden obedience. What you do when no one is watching has more influence in eternity than what you do on a stage before thousands. That hidden prayer you prayed when no one clapped, that seed you gave when no one knew, that decision to stay pure though it cost you dearly, these are the actions that draw the smile of God. Consider this: when Jesus was baptized, the heavens opened and the Father declared, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Notice that Jesus had not yet performed a miracle, healed the sick, or raised the dead. The Father's pleasure came before the works. Why? Because Jesus was already walking in obedience. His submission to the will of God was enough to make heaven rejoice. Chosen ones, the same is true for you. God does not smile at you because of your achievements. He smiles because of your obedience. He rejoices not in what you accomplish by your strength, but in what you surrender to His Spirit. Every time you say yes to God, something shifts in the spiritual realm. Every time you refuse bitterness and choose forgiveness, you are tearing down walls the enemy tried to build around your heart. Every time you lift your hands in worship despite your pain, you are declaring that God is greater than your circumstances. Every time you refuse to give up and choose to stand on His promises, you are declaring your loyalty to Him. And in those moments, heaven cannot remain silent. The Father smiles because He sees His child walking in the light. Do you realize how powerful it is to have God's smile upon your life? His smile is favor, His smile is protection, His smile is destiny. The enemy can hurl his fiery darts, but the shield of God's joy deflects them all. People may reject you, abandon you, or misunderstand you, but the smile of your Father secures you. When He is pleased with you, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. The approval of God is greater than the applause of men, and His delight in you is stronger than the hate of your enemies. Think of the woman who broke the alabaster jar and poured expensive perfume on the feet of Jesus. The disciples criticized her. They thought she had wasted her treasure, but Jesus defended her. He said, "She has done a beautiful thing to me." In other words, heaven smiled. While men judged her, God rejoiced over her. That act of devotion will be remembered for all eternity because it was done in obedience and love. Chosen ones, your devotion, your sacrifices, your yes to God may not be understood by people, but they are cherished by heaven. So keep walking in obedience. Even if no one claps, even if no one notices, even if it costs you something precious, do it because it pleases your Father. For every hidden act of obedience releases a smile from heaven. That smile is the sign that you are on the right path, the assurance that God is with you, and the confirmation that your destiny is secure. Chosen ones, never forget this truth. The smile of God is the highest reward you can receive. It is the evidence that your obedience has touched His heart. The world may not celebrate you, but if heaven rejoices, you are already victorious. Keep choosing the path of righteousness. Keep saying yes to His will. Keep surrendering daily. For every time you obey, the Father smiles again. And when God smiles in joy over you, no force in heaven or on earth can stop the blessing, the favor, and the destiny He has prepared for your life. Walk boldly in this truth because the smile of God is upon you. Chosen ones, one of the most powerful truths you can carry in your heart is this: when you obey God, you are not just pleasing Him, you are shaking the entire spiritual realm. Your obedience may look ordinary on the outside, but in heaven it is celebrated and in hell it is feared. When you finally broke free from fear and chose faith, when you released your burden and trusted His timing, when you stopped resisting His will and said, "Yes, Lord," the Father's heart overflowed with joy. That yes was not just a moment, it was a breakthrough. That yes was the sound of chains falling. That yes was the sign that you are no longer bound by your past, but walking into your future. The enemy trembles when you obey God because your obedience destroys his power. Disobedience is the doorway through which Satan operates, but obedience slams that door shut. When you finally said yes to God, you closed the access of the enemy to your life. And in that moment, God smiled not only because you pleased Him, but because you defeated the one who sought to destroy you. Every time you choose obedience, you prove that the devil has lost and that God has won in your story. Think of Moses at the Red Sea. The Israelites were terrified, the water stood before them, and the Egyptian army was pressing behind them. But Moses chose obedience. He lifted his staff as God commanded, even when it seemed impossible, and the waters parted. That act of faith brought God glory and brought the people deliverance. Chosen ones, your obedience works the same way. It may not always look logical, it may not always make sense, but when you obey God, the impossible becomes possible. Heaven smiles because your faith has given Him room to move in power. Sometimes obedience is painful. Sometimes God asks you to let go of something you treasure or to walk away from something you desire. In those moments, the enemy whispers, "You're losing. You're missing out." But the truth is the opposite. In obedience, you gain the smile of God, and His smile is worth more than anything you give up. Abraham knew this when he placed Isaac on the altar. His heart must have been breaking, but his obedience made God smile. And in that moment, not only was Isaac spared, but Abraham stepped into the fullness of his covenant promise. The smile of God in response to your obedience always brings a greater blessing than what you sacrificed. You must also understand that obedience is not a one-time act, but a lifestyle. Every day you are faced with choices. Will you trust God or your fear? Will you walk in forgiveness or bitterness? Will you honor God in your private life, or will you compromise? Every choice is a seed, and every seed produces fruit. When you consistently choose obedience, you plant seeds that produce a harvest of favor, joy, and breakthrough. And every time you plant such a seed, God smiles because He knows the fruit will glorify Him. Do not underestimate the power of one act of obedience. Naaman, the commander, was healed of leprosy simply because he obeyed the prophet's instruction to dip 7 times in the Jordan River. The act seemed foolish, but his obedience carried his miracle. In the same way, your obedience may not look impressive to others, but it carries the power to unlock your destiny. It carries the power to make heaven rejoice and to draw the smile of God upon your life. Chosen ones, the smile of God is not just a reward, it is a covering. When God smiles on you, His favor surrounds you like a shield. Doors open that no man can shut. Enemies plot but cannot prevail. Storms rage but cannot sink you. Why? Because the smile of God is the mark of His approval and protection. His joy is your assurance that you are walking the right path, and nothing can stop the plans He has set in motion for you. Chosen ones, never forget that obedience is the key that unlocks heaven's joy. Every time you obey, God smiles. Every time you surrender, He rejoices. Every time you trust, He delights. That smile is the greatest treasure you can carry because it means you are aligned with His heart and safe in His will. Do not be afraid of what obedience costs you, because the smile of God is worth more than anything you leave behind. Keep saying yes, keep trusting, keep obeying. For when God smiles in joy over you, no power in the universe can stop the destiny He has prepared for your life. Walk boldly because heaven is rejoicing and your Father is smiling over you. Chosen ones, one of the most powerful realities we must grasp is this: God does not only smile at the grand stages of your life, but at the hidden sacrifices, the unseen battles, and the private moments where you chose Him above everything else. Men see your outer actions, but God sees your heart. Men see what you accomplish in public, but God notices what you do when no one is watching. That moment when you forgave in silence, when you gave even though it hurt, when you prayed while your tears soaked the pillow, when you resisted temptation though no one would ever find out, heaven saw it. And in that very moment, God smiled in joy because you finally chose His way over your own. Do not think for a second that your quiet obedience goes unnoticed. The Bible says in Matthew 6 that your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you openly. This means every hidden yes, every secret prayer, every quiet act of faith has been written in heaven's book. You may feel invisible to people, but you are never invisible to God. He delights in you when you put Him first. He rejoices when you walk in His ways. And when you finally did that thing He had been waiting for, the heavens erupted with joy and your Father smiled. The smile of God is not a casual expression. It is a powerful spiritual reality. His smile is favor. His smile is the lifting of burdens. His smile is the release of blessings you have been waiting for. Think about it. When God looks at you with joy, every demon that has been assigned to hinder you must flee. When He smiles, doors begin to open. When He smiles, chains break. When He smiles, curses dissolve. The smile of God is heaven's seal that you are moving in the right direction. But chosen ones, we must understand that obedience is not always easy. There were times when you almost gave up, when the pain was unbearable, when the enemy whispered, "It's not worth it." And yet, you pressed on, you held on to your faith, you trusted God when there was no evidence to trust. That is why your obedience has such weight in the spirit realm. It was not obedience birthed out of comfort, but obedience birthed out of sacrifice. And that is the kind of obedience that makes God smile. Think of Hannah in the temple, weeping bitterly because she had no child. Year after year, she cried out to God. Yet in her brokenness, she still worshipped, still prayed, still vowed to dedicate her child to the Lord if He answered her prayer. And when Samuel was born, she fulfilled her vow. She gave back to God what she loved the most. That act of surrender was a sacrifice that made God smile. Her obedience blessed generations because she was willing to choose God's will over her own desire. The truth is, the smile of God comes when you give Him what costs you something. David once said, "I will not offer to the Lord what costs me nothing." True obedience will often require sacrifice of pride, of comfort, of desires, of plans. But chosen ones, every time you lay something on the altar for God, you gain something far greater: His approval, His delight, His smile. And that smile secures blessings that cannot be taken away. Do not let the world deceive you into thinking that greatness comes from recognition, applause, or achievements. Greatness in the kingdom is measured by obedience. The world may never applaud your faithfulness, but heaven has already celebrated it. The Father has smiled over you. His joy is not temporary, it is eternal. His delight is not shallow, it is deep. And when God smiles, your destiny cannot be denied. Chosen ones, remember this, your secret obedience carries eternal weight. The world may never see it, but God does. And every time you trust Him in the dark, every time you sacrifice for His glory, every time you obey in secret, the Father smiles. That smile is your reward, your covering, and your crown. Do not stop doing what pleases Him. Keep saying yes, even when it's hard. Keep trusting, even when it hurts. Keep obeying, even when no one notices. Because every time you do, the heavens rejoice and your Father smiles in joy. And if God is smiling over you, then nothing can stop the destiny He has ordained for your life. Chosen ones, when God smiles upon you, it is not just a moment of approval, it is a declaration that your season is shifting. His smile is the sign that what was once delayed will now be accelerated, that what was blocked will now be released, that what seemed impossible will now be possible. When you finally aligned your heart with His will, heaven responded. That yes you gave to God became the turning point in your story. It was the moment that the spiritual atmosphere shifted and the joy of the Lord was poured over your life. You may have endured long nights of struggle, wondering if God was even watching. You prayed and saw no immediate answer. You fought battles that no one else understood. You carried weights that would have broken others. And yet, in the middle of it all, you still chose to trust Him. That is why His smile carries so much weight. It is heaven's acknowledgement that your perseverance was not in vain. God saw your faithfulness. God saw your tears. God saw the times you could have given up but didn't. And now, because you finally surrendered fully, He smiles with joy. The smile of God is not passive. It is active power. When God smiles, favor begins to chase you. When God smiles, opportunities begin to find you. When God smiles, His angels are released to fight on your behalf. The smile of God is the very atmosphere of heaven released into your life. It means that the Creator of the universe is pleased with you, and no force in the universe can undo what He has established. Think of Job. He lost everything. His wealth, his health, his children, his dignity. Even his friends accused him, and his wife told him to curse God and die. But Job held on. In the deepest pain, he declared, "Though He slay me, yet will I trust Him." That kind of faith makes heaven move. And at the end of Job's story, God restored him double. The Lord smiled because Job's faith endured the fire. Chosen ones, the same is true for you. The trials you walked through were not wasted. Every prayer, every tear, every step of faith has built a testimony that makes heaven rejoice. It is important to know that God's smile is not just for your encouragement, it is also for your empowerment. When He smiles, He strengthens you for the journey ahead. His joy becomes your strength, and His approval becomes your boldness. The smile of God equips you to face battles you could not face before. It becomes the fuel that drives you forward, the assurance that you are walking in His will. And when God is with you, no one can be against you. Remember, chosen ones, that His smile also brings promotion. David was a forgotten shepherd boy, unseen by his father, overlooked by his brothers. But God saw him. God heard his songs in the fields. God felt his devotion in the secret place, and God smiled. That smile lifted him from the pasture to the palace. What men ignored, heaven celebrated. What men despised, God anointed. The smile of God has the power to lift you from obscurity into destiny. It is not man's recognition that qualifies you, it is heaven's approval. And when God smiles, He qualifies you for what others thought you could never have. So do not despise the small steps of obedience you take every day. Do not think your prayers are wasted or your sacrifices unnoticed. God is keeping record. And when the moment comes that you finally surrender completely, when you finally obey without hesitation, when you finally trust without wavering, the heavens open and God's joy overflows. His smile is your breakthrough, your shield, and your confirmation that the best is yet to come. Chosen ones, you must hold this truth close to your heart. When God smiles, everything changes. His joy marks the end of delay, the breaking of chains, the release of blessings, and the unfolding of destiny. You did not endure in vain. You did not trust in vain. You did not obey in vain. Heaven has seen it all, and the Father is rejoicing over you. Walk boldly, for His smile is upon you. Live with confidence, for His favor surrounds you. Stand in faith, for His joy is your strength. Chosen ones, God smiled in joy because you finally did this, and that smile is the beginning of a new season of victory in your life. Chosen ones, the smile of God is not a small thing. It is the very key that unlocks your destiny. When God looks at you with joy, it is not only a sign of His approval, but also a declaration that your future is now open, your steps are now ordered, and your life is now aligned with heaven's purpose. When you finally surrendered that battle, when you finally trusted His plan above your own, when you finally said yes and obeyed completely, God smiled. And that smile was more than an emotion. It was a spiritual decree. It was heaven's confirmation that you are ready to step into the next dimension of your calling. For so long, the enemy tried to keep you bound. Bound by fear, bound by doubt, bound by memories of your past. He whispered lies into your ears, telling you that you would never break through, that you would never rise, that you would never be enough. But chosen ones, the moment you chose faith over fear, the moment you chose obedience over compromise, the moment you chose trust over doubt, the enemy's grip broke. God smiled because you finally did what he had been waiting for. His joy was released, and with that joy came your victory. You must understand that the smile of God carries creative power. When he smiles, things shift. His smile opens doors that no man can shut. It calls forth blessings that were hidden. It ushers in opportunities that had been delayed. His smile is the ultimate promotion, because when God delights in you, no human hand can hold you back. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Potiphar's wife accused him falsely. The prison bars closed around him, but heaven was smiling on him, and that smile lifted him from the pit to the palace. Chosen ones, the same God who smiled on Joseph is smiling on you. Your pit is not your end. It is the pathway to your promotion. The smile of God is also your protection. When the Father smiles on you, his presence surrounds you like a shield. The arrows of the enemy may fly, but they cannot touch you. The storms may rage, but they cannot sink you. The plots of men may rise against you, but they cannot succeed. Why? Because the smile of God is your covering. It is his way of saying, this one is mine. Touch not my anointed. That smile is not just approval, it is security. It is the assurance that you are safe in the hands of the Almighty. Chosen ones, never forget that what made God smile was not your strength, but your surrender. Not your perfection, but your obedience. You finally stopped striving to do it your way and chose to walk his way. You finally stopped resisting his will and said yes to his leading. And that yes shifted your destiny. Heaven is not impressed by how strong you pretend to be, but it rejoices when you yield to God's strength in your weakness. That is why the Father smiled in joy. It was your obedience, your trust, your surrender that pleased him. Think of Esther. She could have remained silent. She could have hidden in fear, but she chose courage. She stepped into the king's court, risking her life for her people. That act of obedience caused heaven to smile, and God used her to deliver an entire nation. Chosen ones, your yes may look small, but in God's hands, it carries weight that will impact generations. Your obedience is not just about you. It is about the lives connected to your destiny. When you finally said yes, God smiled because he knew that your surrender would unlock blessings for others as well. And here is the truth you must carry in your spirit. The smile of God is the confirmation that your story is not ending in defeat, but in victory. It is the assurance that your latter days will be greater than your former days. It is the evidence that no matter how hard the battle has been, you are walking into a season of joy, favor, and breakthrough. The Father's smile is your greatest treasure, your greatest shield, and your greatest confirmation. Chosen ones, God smiled in joy because you finally did this. You finally trusted him fully, surrendered completely, and obeyed without hesitation. That smile is not just approval, it is the key to your destiny. It secures your future, it silences your enemies, it opens the doors that were locked, and it empowers you for the journey ahead. Do not take his smile lightly, cherish it, honor it, and walk boldly in it. For when God smiles on you, no man can curse you, no enemy can stop you, and no storm can break you. His smile is the seal of heaven over your life. Walk forward with confidence, chosen ones, for the Father is smiling, and your destiny has been unlocked.